say your enemy's enemy is your friend. Is that the foundation of the new defense bridge between India and America?
This is what separates us from others who claim to be telling you global stories that matter. In the last 3 days, WION has been traveling across Syria. You are in Latakia city right now. Tell us, what is the situation on ground? At Gravitas, we don't just tell you stories from selected countries from around the world.
2 years since the Myanmar military coup, the people of Myanmar continue to live in a nightmare.
Because it does not suit their propaganda, or because they are too scared to speak truth to power.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yowan.com.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Here's a quick look at what's lined up for you on the show tonight. Our cover story tonight on Gravitas is about monkeys. Don't worry, you heard me right. Monkeys have been making headlines and have triggered a number of question marks over the last few hours. This, simply put, is a story of monkey business. It's a story of how Sri Lanka has come up with a rather unique way to repay Chinese debt. You know how? Sri Lanka could export 100,000 monkeys to China. Why? What's brewing and what is China saying about this? We tell you this and more as a part of our cover story tonight. Also on the show for you, we tell you how a leaked document has revealed the story of China's supersonic drone. What can it do? We discuss. India is gearing up to host the Maiden Buddhist Council. We tell you about the significance and what's on agenda. Nepal's president has been airlifted to the All India Institute of Medical Sciences in New Delhi. We tell you how and why Nepalese leaders have time and again chosen India for healthcare treatments. Does fruit juice lead to type 2 diabetes? We tell you what a new study says. Our cover story tonight is a rather strange one. It's about monkey business between Sri Lanka and China. Did you know Sri Lanka is exporting 100,000 monkeys to China? Why? You are of course asking. One explanation is that it wants, through this transaction, to reduce its huge debt to China. Over $7 billion. We'll all know that Colombo does not have the $7 billion, but how exactly is Colombo going to help solve this gigantic problem? By feeding monkeys to the dragon is the immediate question that arises. Well, let's just start with this. These are torque macaques. This species is found mainly in Sri Lanka. They are endangered and they feature on the red list of IUCN, what's called the International Union for Conservation of Nature. And like we've been saying, Sri Lanka is reportedly shipping 100,000 of these monkeys to China. The obvious question, of course, is what will China do with these monkeys? 100,000 monkeys, it's a lot. Well, the official word is that the monkeys would be put in zoos. And how many zoos? Lankan media quoting the country's agriculture minister as saying that China has requested for these monkeys to be exhibited in Chinese zoos. Tell you what, zoos are a sad place for animals to be in, but China has 18 zoos and apparently 5,000 monkeys already in them. They don't need any more. But the fate of these ill-fated 100,000 monkeys is not to end up in zoos, but as specimens in labs. Chinese labs where they will be experimented upon, injected with drugs, pricked with needles. You see, China, like many countries, uses monkeys to test drugs, vaccines, cosmetics, etc. And as I speak, China desperately needs lab monkeys. You see, in 2020, when the Wuhan virus crossed borders and the world started talking about China's wet market, the wildlife business, China was forced to impose a ban on overseas wildlife trade to save face. And this in turn hurt the Chinese labs. In 2021, reports said China is running out of lab monkeys to experiment upon. In 2022, Chinese mouthpiece, the Global Times, reported that experimental monkeys have become a hot commodity in China. Not just that, the report went on to say that in the past 5 years, the prices of experimental monkeys have increased about 8 times in China. 8 times. Adding that cost per primate has gone up to 150,000 yuan. That is over $21,000 per monkey. The good thing is China has a leverage on Sri Lanka, so it gets monkeys for free. And not everyone, by the way, in Sri Lanka is okay with this monkey business. The issue is dominating the public discourse. The executive director of Sri Lanka's Centre for Environmental Justice, Hemanta Vittanage, recently shared some startling facts. He told the people of Sri Lanka that as per the globally accepted criteria for the definition of zoos, there are just 18 zoos in China. And what's more, these zoos already have around 5,000 monkeys each. Basically, China's claim of exhibiting the Lankan monkeys does not make much sense. Naveen Disanaike, a former minister, in fact, said these monkeys should, quote-unquote, only be sent abroad on exchange programs between zoos, and it is inhuman, knowing fully well that there is a great possibility that they will end up in labs and be subjected to torture. They are beautiful animals and have every right to live a full life roaming in their natural habitat. So the government of Sri Lanka is facing quite a strong opposition for its monkey business with China. One wonders, how did the thought of such a deal even come about? You see, for Colombo, shipping monkeys is a win-win situation. One, it gets to please China, repay a portion of its debt in kind. And two, it gets to get rid of the monkey menace. What's that about? Local media reporting that the population of monkeys in Sri Lanka has crossed 3 million. And these animals, by the way, have been terrorizing farmers. According to Lanka's agriculture minister, monkeys and giant squirrels destroy nearly 100 million coconuts each year, which amounts to a loss of nearly $19.3 million. Last year, in fact, Sri Lanka removed these monkeys from the protected list, allowing the farmers to kill them. And now Sri Lanka is planning to exile them. But here's something that you should be noting here. Sri Lankan law does not allow for the export of these monkeys, or for that matter, the export of any live animals. But the death-stricken country could be looking to make an exception for China, which, by the way, is rubbishing the very existence of such a deal. The Chinese embassy in Sri Lanka has put out this statement. It says the reports of monkeys being sent to China is disinformation at best, adding that the concerned government department is not aware of the request for monkeys. Well, it does not add up then that Lankan ministers are issuing public statements regarding this very deal. The country's transport minister recently clarified that the discussion for monkeys is not between the two governments, but between the government of Sri Lanka and a Chinese company. Which Chinese company? Probably some company supplying lab monkeys. But whatever this hush-hush monkey business is about, it is questionable on multiple levels: ethical, moral, and of course, let's not forget the cost of the Chinese lab experiments. Remember, the Wuhan virus began with one such experiment with bats. The next pandemic could involve monkeys. And we are staying with China for our next story. From monkeys, we move to drones. Supersonic drones that can travel 3 times the speed of sound. China could soon be deploying one such drone. And how do we know this? Because of certain leaked documents from America's National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. In fact, the Washington Post saying that the document features satellite images of these drones. They are called WZ-8 rocket-propelled reconnaissance drones. These drones, in fact, were spotted at an air base in eastern China, some 560 kilometers from Shanghai. The question is, how does China plan to use these drones? To spy over Ladakh? To monitor everything happening in the South China Sea or the larger Indian Ocean region? Well, America has a theory here, and the leaked document reveals this very theory. America is saying that China has almost certainly established a drone unit at a base that falls under the Eastern Theater Command. It just so happens that the Eastern Theater Command is that branch of the PLA that is responsible for Chinese military action vis-a-vis Taiwan. So, are we to believe that the Chinese supersonic drones will be deployed over Taiwan? The leaked document also draws up a possible flight path for this spy drone. Here it is. And if you zoom in, you will see that the Americans believe that the H-6M Badger bomber carrying the drone will take off from the Luan airfield in China and then head towards the Taiwan Strait. And once it is over the strait, the drone will be released, which will fly over Taiwan's Yilan County and then move to the heart of Taiwan, turn west and exit the Taiwan airspace near the city of Tainan. American intelligence, in fact, also believing that the spy drone will be flying over South Korea. Here's what is being reported about this drone. One, like I told you, it can travel at 3 times the speed of sound. 2, it can soar to an altitude of 100,000 feet. Now, just for your reference, your commercial planes fly at the height of 31,000 to 38,000 feet, and this drone will be flying at 3 times that height, and it will be using rocket fuel. You know what they say, truth is the first casualty of war. And this phrase has never made more sense than now, especially if you look at the Russia-Ukraine war. Why am I saying this? A year since the war started, the gap between truth and falsehoods is growing wider by the day. And the reason is quite simple. This, after all, is the first war to see algorithms and TikTok videos being deployed alongside fighter planes and tanks. So, one has to navigate things rather carefully, tread with caution to get an accurate account of what really is unfolding. Because both sides have weaponized information, of course, for the benefit of their respective governments. And even specific battle stories are questionable. For instance, the number of casualties. Headlines in Western media saying that Putin's forces are being humiliated, that they have suffered heavy casualties. And on the other hand, the Russian media saying that it is Ukraine that is being humiliated. It is Ukraine that has suffered more casualties. And these rather wild variations also extending to accounts of destruction on both sides. Ukraine saying that it has destroyed more military equipment, Russia saying it has entirely weakened Ukraine's frontline defenses, both sides essentially saying the other is lying. And these differences illustrate the kind of story each side wants to offer to its own people. Just to put it simply, Ukraine wants to encourage its people through the tale of a successful resistance. And Russia, on the other hand, wants to convince its people through stories of its military gains. And neither side wants to talk about the casualties and the damages in their ranks. My point here is simple. Yes, this is a military battle, but it's also a battle of narratives, a war of disinformation. And here's more proof. You see, for the last 12 months, there have been numerous reports on the Russian president's health. The Western media has made all kinds of claims, right from how he is suffering from blurred vision and numbness of the tongue, to how he is using a body double due to his worsening health condition, also to how he was seen limping during his visit to Crimea. Now, these claims were wild as it is. What's worse, they have now come up with a new one. Have a look at this report. British tabloids now saying that Putin may have undergone treatment for thyroid cancer. And what's the basis for these claims, you wonder? An apparent scar that was spotted on Putin's neck. And this mark, by the way, was apparently seen as Putin clasped a candle at a midnight Orthodox Easter cathedral service in Moscow. The report saying that this mark represents proof of credible claims that the Russian leader could be suffering from thyroid cancer. Now, here's the thing. The outlets carrying this news have provided no medical evidence to back their claims. They've just made these allegations based on a mark on the Russian president's neck. And what's worse, for the last 1 year, they have made similar accusations from time to time. Yet, the Russian president in no way seems to be in bad shape. So we cannot take every story on face value. We cannot confuse visibility with transparency, because we don't know how much of the information is actually being filtered, modified, or even concocted. And you know what's worse? Social media is complicating the matters even further. And it's not a level playing field anymore. It is entirely controlled by the West. I'm of course talking about tech giants like Twitter, Facebook, Google, Apple. These companies, these private companies, seem to have only openly aligned themselves with the West. They are pushing one narrative and restricting the other side of the story. Google has barred Russian state media from monetizing content on its platforms. Apple has blocked RT and Sputnik from its app store everywhere outside Russia. Twitter, for that matter, is labeling all posts by the Russian state media, adding a warning of sorts on pro-Russian stories. And then we have Meta. Have a look at this report from last year. It says Facebook and Instagram are allowing posts calling for violence against Russians and their president, Vladimir Putin. So the point I'm trying to make is quite simple. The Western media, in cahoots with tech giants, are overstepping their purpose. They are deciding when it's okay to call for violence and when it's not. Russia is the aggressor in the Ukraine conflict. Yes. But you see, the West's monopoly on information flow is making things rather complex. On to India now. It is all set to host the world's first Global Buddhist Summit. The two-day event will begin on the 20th of April. Eminent Buddhist delegates from around the world will be gathering in New Delhi. The Dalai Lama has already arrived in the national capital. What does this event entail? What is on the agenda? Our next report getting you all the details.
India is set to host the first Global Buddhist Summit on April 20th. Eminent Buddhist monks from around the world will gather in New Delhi. As many as 170 foreign delegates from 30 countries and 150 delegates from Indian Buddhist organizations are going to attend the two-day summit. This includes scholars, monks, and diplomats. The Dalai Lama has already arrived in the national capital. The event is organized by India's Union Ministry of Culture and the International Buddhist Confederation. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate it. So what is this summit about? What is on the agenda? And why is it important? The event is the first of its kind. As you might already know, Buddhism was born in India. It is the land of the Buddha. The religion originated in Bihar's Bodh Gaya village. All the important places connected to the life of the Buddha, such as Rajgir and Nalanda, are in India. People come from around the globe for pilgrimage to these places. The summit highlights the country's significance as far as Buddhism is concerned. For the first time, global contemporary issues will be discussed from a Buddhist perspective. At such a scale, the discussions will follow the theme of responses to contemporary challenges from philosophy to practice. What exactly will be discussed? Peace and Buddhism, environmental crisis, health and sustainability. You see, a lot is happening. There's a war going on in Ukraine, natural calamities have become more frequent. Then there's the pressing issue of climate change. The best Buddhist thinkers from all over the world will be taking up these issues at this platform. They will also discuss the preservation of Nalanda Buddhist tradition and Buddhist pilgrimage and relics. The deliberations will likely explore how the Buddha Dharma's fundamental values can inspire and guide the contemporary world. The summit will be looking into the teachings of the Buddha. It follows the two-day International SCO Conference on Shared Buddhist Heritage. This gathering brought together delegates from Central, East and South Asia, along with Gulf nations. India also hosted a global Buddhist congregation in November 2011. It brought together the entire supreme hierarchy of the Buddhist world and representatives of the Buddhist community. The International Buddhist Confederation was formulated through this conference. Let's see how the upcoming Global Buddhist Summit unfolds. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And from New Delhi, we turn further north to Punjab, the 19th largest state of India, also known as the land of five rivers. For a long time, the spectre of drug abuse has haunted this state. But despite the efforts made by the authorities, this narcotics crisis still persists. I'm going to start with this report. On the 16th of April, officials from India's Border Security Force recovered 2 packets of contraband drugs. This was in the city of Gurdaspur. The packets were reportedly tied in a single piece of cloth. A hook along with a nylon rope and a luminous strip was also found attached to the consignment. Officials say that this indicates that the packets came from across the border. And here's what adds to their doubts. On the same day, BSF troops recovered 3 kilograms of heroin dropped by a Pakistani drone near the international border in Punjab's Amritsar. And reports say BSF personnel heard the buzzing sound of the drone entering the Indian territory from across the border. And they immediately shot the drone down. Upon inspection, they recovered 3 packets of heroin attached to an iron ring with a hook and 4 luminous strips. Now here's the thing. It is common knowledge that Pakistan pushes drugs across the Indian border. In fact, 2 years back, a report said that more than 80% of illegal drugs entering India come from Pakistan. It revealed how Pakistan has an absolute monopoly in the subcontinent's narcotics trade. In fact, Pakistan's deep state is an active proponent of this trade. The inter-services intelligence is involved in pushing drugs into Punjab and Jammu and Kashmir. In fact, on multiple occasions, Indian officials have intercepted these shipments. In fact, some of you might have heard of the Golden Crescent. It is one of the biggest opium-producing regions in the world. It straddles Central and South Asia, basically Pakistan and Afghanistan. Now, we know that every producer needs a middleman. For Afghanistan, that middleman is Pakistan. It is a well-oiled machinery. The opium is grown near the Afpak border in places like Kandahar and Helmand. And from there, the drugs are transported through land to Pakistani ports. And there's a lot of tacit support from Islamabad. You see, the local dons get a free pass. The government officials often look the other way. And so, these drug shipments make it to sea. In rare cases, foreign navies catch them. I can give you examples here. In August, Sri Lanka seized a fishing vessel with 290 kilograms of heroin. In September, they seized 2 ships. They were carrying around 500 kilograms of heroin. And the same month, India also made a huge drug bust. Around 3,000 kilograms of heroin was seized at the Mundra port in Gujarat. But you see, the full extent of this drug trade has remained unknown for the longest time. And as it turns out, the rot runs much deeper. On the 18th of April, the Chief Minister of Punjab dismissed a senior cop over an alleged nexus with drug traffickers. This move came after 3 reports prepared by Anti-Drug Special Investigation Force, which revealed how the COP was helping the drug smugglers by leaving loopholes in the investigations. And what does that tell you? That Pakistan may be slipping drugs into India, but there are certain rotten apples that are helping facilitate this very crisis. Let's now move on to the UK. It is gearing up for a special day. The clock is ticking. The countdown has been underway for a grand ceremony, the King's coronation. It is a ceremony that will be watched around the world, and we will be getting you all the updates as and when they happen. Now, the coronation is still days away, but it has been making headlines for weeks now, given the preparation that's involved, also the curiosity that's attached to the event. In the latest, the ceremony is making headlines for a gift for the king. What is the gift and who is it from? 2 shards of the true cross are a gift from Pope Francis to King Charles. Let me break it down for you. Basically, small shards of wood from what some believe is the true cross on which Jesus Christ was crucified have been incorporated into a cross that will lead King Charles's coronation procession. So, these shards will be making their presence felt during the grand coronation ceremony. They will be a part of the coronation procession. And let's just tell you a little bit more about the gift. The tiny fragments are shaped like crosses, one of which is 1 centimeter and the other is only 5 millimeters. They have been set into the larger silver cross behind a rose crystal gemstone. The Cross of Wales was gifted from Charles to the church in Wales and will be blessed by the Archbishop of Wales, Andrew John, in a service, and when it arrives in London, it will be shared between the Anglican and the Catholic churches. According to reports, it was made from recycled silver bullion, which was provided by the Royal Mint in South Wales, and includes a shaft of Welsh windfall timber and Welsh slate. And let's just tell you a little bit more about the true cross. The true cross is basically used for the cross upon which Jesus Christ is said to have been crucified. There is religious veneration attached to it. And what about the story of the true cross, its journey? It is believed that the true cross was found by Saint Helena, mother of Constantine the Great. This was during her pilgrimage to the Holy Land. She discovered the hiding place of 3 crosses. This was sometime between 326 AD and 328 AD, one of which is said to bear Jesus' name. And fragments from the cross have been shared among mostly Catholic organizations around the world. In fact, the earliest historical reference to the veneration of the true cross was in the mid-4th century. And by the 8th century, there were legendary details about the history of the wood of the cross before it was used for the crucifixion. As per traditions, in fact, 3 crosses were found buried near the site of the Holy Sepulchre. And in order to find out which was the true cross, the Patriarch Macarius of Jerusalem had a sick person touch each of the 3 crosses. So how was the true cross discovered? Well, when the sick person was healed upon touching it. But that's just a summary of how the true cross is believed to have been discovered. There's more to the story. The true cross is said to have been split into 3 parts. 1/3 remained in Jerusalem, 1/3 was brought to Rome, and 1/3 was taken to Constantinople to make it impregnable. And that's not where the story ends. The story of the true cross has a series of disappearances attached to it. multiple disappearances. It was hidden many times, later rediscovered. The relic has seen multiple journeys, and now it is making news as 2 shards of the true cross will be making their way and their presence felt in London. Nepalese leaders have often relied on India for medical treatments, and this time it is the Nepalese president, Ramchandra Paudel. The leader has been airlifted to New Delhi after he earlier fainted due to a suspected infection. Our next report getting you the complete story. Take a look.
Nepal's newly elected president Ramchandra Paudel is scheduled to go through advanced treatment for chest and abdominal problems. Paudel will be treated at one of the best government hospitals, the All India Institute of Medical Sciences in New Delhi. So, what happened to the leader? On Tuesday, Paudel complained of suspected chest pain. He fainted and was rushed to a hospital in Kathmandu. Even though he was treated for a chest infection, doctors advised that the leader be sent to New Delhi for better and advanced treatment. The Nepalese president was then airlifted and arrived in the Indian capital for further treatment. But this is not the first time a Nepalese leader was in India for better healthcare facilities. Take the Nepalese Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal, for example, who is known to visit a major private hospital in India for routine medical checkups. Another example is the former Nepalese Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, who visited New Delhi to undergo a kidney transplant in 2007. So, what's the reason behind this? Why do Nepalese leaders rely on Indian healthcare? Well, India is home to one of the world's largest healthcare systems. Despite the huge challenges it faces, a massive population being a part of the problem, the country provides free healthcare to over 1 billion people. The nation has also seen significant victories and accomplishments, like eradicating polio in 2011 and reducing communicable diseases by a remarkable 50% between 1990 and 2016. And when it comes to the COVID pandemic era, the country's technological advancements, paired with a strong research base, helped lower the number of active cases. Nepal's healthcare system, on the other hand, does not enjoy the same reputation. And there's a long way to go before the country establishes a resilient health system.
Do you like to have a nice juicy drink in the summers? You must also have a favorite fruit juice. Well, we may have bad news for some of you juice lovers. Studies show that drinking too much fruit juice may increase the risks of developing type 2 diabetes. So does this mean that we just stop having fruits? Absolutely not. After all, eating whole fruits is actually quite healthy. Well, at least healthier than having the juice that they contain. But why are researchers targeting fruit juice? Experts say that fruit juice contains a large amount of sugar which can raise the blood sugar levels rather quickly. And this spike in the sugar levels can easily harm the people, especially those who already have a certain type of diabetes. So let's just first see how many types of diabetes exist. First comes type 1 diabetes, which is an autoimmune disease. This is when the immune system starts attacking the healthy cells in the pancreas, the place where the body creates insulin. Next is type 1.5 diabetes, also known as the latent autoimmune diabetes. This is similar to type 1, but only occurs during adulthood. Now comes type 2 diabetes, which is the most common type of diabetes. Type 2 causes the body to become resistant to insulin, and this results in the sugar building up in the bloodstream. Studies show that having whole fruits is much better than having the juice. What does the juice contain that we don't know about? Well, let's talk about the calories. A regular glass of orange juice contains nearly 100 calories as compared to the 60 calories in a whole orange. Next is fructose, which is a form of sugar. Half a pint of fruit juice contains more sugar than what the WHO recommends, which is ideally 30 grams for men and 24 grams for women. You see, fruit juice also lacks fiber. A whole fruit always contains more fiber as compared to the juice, and highly processed juices which might not even have any fiber. So should a person just stop consuming fruit juice? Of course, we wouldn't advise that. Why take away the juicy joy from anyone's life? All that the researchers recommend is to tone down your consumption. Maybe only have a few glasses of juice a week. Because fruit juice is not all bad for the body, it is a good source of vitamin C. Drinking juice can remove certain toxins from the body as well. It helps with the body's digestion process. It helps to lose weight. But one thing to remember is to moderate the number of glasses that you are drinking. Now, while you regulate your fruit juice intake, there are more ways to stay safe from diabetes. You could stop having foods with added sugars. Sugars like corn syrup help boost the shelf life of the baked goods and beverages, but they also end up increasing the risk of heart disease and diabetes. Avoid foods with trans fatty acids. Trans fats are commonly used to improve the flavor of the processed foods, but have been linked to increased inflammation and insulin resistance. Trans fats can be so harmful that they have been outlawed in multiple countries. And this one might be hard for some people. Reduce your alcohol consumption, especially if you have diabetes. Increased alcohol consumption can limit your liver's ability to release glucose, and this might cause fluctuations in the blood sugar levels and interfere with certain diabetes medications. So are you up for the challenge to have lesser glasses of fruit juice? But make sure you don't squeeze the pulp out of your life. And it's that time of the year when most people around the world file their taxes. A survey by travel app Hopper suggests more than 60% of its users expect to spend their tax returns on travel. So before you file your returns, have a look at this story.
Paris, Dubai, Amsterdam, Madrid, and Rome. These were the most attractive tourist destinations of 2022. But in 2023, priorities have changed. Travel is not a luxury anymore. It is a right for many. Years lost due to the pandemic, rising cost of living and stagnant wages mean travelers are looking to get maximum buck for every dollar they manage to save. April is a good time for most millennials and Gen Z workers who travel more than their ancestors. That's because they are most likely to receive income tax returns for their overpayments. A survey by travel app Hopper suggests more than 51% of its users are expecting tax returns, and of those, 60% plan on spending some or all of it on travel. And popular tourist hotels are running at capacity all over the world. However, there are some places that you could still visit on a bargain. That's because the dollar has gained almost 300% compared to currencies of some countries. Countries that have become attractive due to the local currency depreciation are Argentina, Brazil, Norway, Sweden, and India. A look at Hopper's app reveals a round trip to these countries averages around $1,000. But the added advantage of traveling to countries like India is the low in-country travel cost. Your dollar can get you 20% more goods and services in India than it could in 2019. Viewer Report, WION, World is One.
Do you love painting your nails? Always booking your next manicure session perhaps, experimenting with different nail paints? Well, you might want to slow it down, especially if you love gel nails. They might come in beautiful colors, but they have a dark side to them. They could give you life-changing allergies. And no, I am not exaggerating this. It's true. Gel nail manicures have their own appeal. They are beautiful, they are sophisticated. One salon visit can keep you covered for the next 2 or 3 weeks. But at what cost? You might not know this. Gel nail products contain harmful chemicals. They are called methacrylates. You know how gel nail paints work, right? For those unversed, they are applied in liquid form and then they are hardened under a lamp. And this happens because of the methacrylates. But did you know what else can happen because of them? Skin rashes, peeling skin. Your nail can loosen and could fall off, and in rare cases, you may even develop breathing difficulties. Other severe symptoms include swollen cuticles, sores on your fingers, eczema on the face, around your eyelids, neck, basically wherever your nails touch your body. And once you develop sensitivity to these compounds, there is no going back. It can invite trouble for you down the line. And how is that? You see, the plastics used in gel polishes are similar to those used in dental fillings, joint replacements, cataract treatment, and even in some diabetes treatment. Isn't it too big a risk to take? But why does this even happen? And why has it become so prevalent? Because of the lack of awareness and not following the procedure properly. In fact, toxicologists say that each gel polish formulation is designed to be cured by a specific lamp. And if you don't cure it for the right amount of time, under the right light, the polish will not harden. It will stay liquefied and you will be at a high risk of developing an allergy. And the danger further increases if you frequent a dodgy nail bar. You know, you might find a salon that offers gel manicures at half the price of a luxury one. But these professionals might be mixing and matching different gel products, sourcing budget dupes, or not using the right kind of lamp. Budget copycats are produced as cheaply as possible. Sure, they can help you save a few bucks, but they might be bombarded with harmful chemicals. And then there is the recent rise of DIY gel manicures. They became all the rage when people were stuck in their homes during the pandemic, when nail salons were shut and people had all the time to experiment. Most uninformed users buy gel polish from one place and their lamp from another, and they don't realize the importance of carefully matching these two. Also, when you paint your own nails, there is a high chance of getting the product on your skin. And this further increases your chances of developing an allergy. And even if you are doing all the things right, buying the right products, getting a matching lamp, you might still be at a risk of aging your hands. And worse, developing skin cancer. Because not only gel polishes, but the UV lamps as well are dangerous. Ultraviolet light causes damage to the skin cells. Isn't that why dermatologists advise you to wear sunscreen? When you cure your nails under UV lamps, you put them in close contact with harmful radiation. In a study published in the journal Nature Communications, researchers found that exposing skin cells to UV light for 20 minutes killed around 30% of the cells. And those who survived suffered DNA damage. The damage patterns were similar to those observed in melanoma patients. Is that the price you would like to pay for beautiful nails? But this does not mean you can never treat yourselves to manicures, of course. Occasional gel nails might not hurt. And not to forget, there are hosts of alternatives in the market. There are dip powder manicures, press-on nails as well, and the good old traditional nail polish. Let's now tell you what else made news around the world. Time for Gravitas Global Headlines.
Sudan's paramilitary agreed to a new 24-hour ceasefire starting 1600 GMT, but it was not immediately clear whether the army would announce its own commitment to the ceasefire. The country has witnessed intense fighting between the army and the paramilitary forces, leading to over 270 deaths, and left at least 2,600 injured so far. The UN has expressed its concern to the US over reports of the US spying on the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres and other senior officials. This comes after classified US documents were leaked online, which stated that the US intercepted conversations that shed new light on the UN chief's interactions with top UN officials and world leaders. Ukrainian officials are claiming that Russian drones have struck Ukraine's southern Odessa region and caused a fire at an infrastructure facility. Ukrainian officials released a video showing firefighters working on site of damaged buildings and what appears to be drone parts with a sign reading "Do not touch" in Russian. No casualties have been reported so far. Russian Defense Ministry had said 8 of its long-range bombers flew over neutral waters in the Sea of Okhotsk and Sea of Japan to provide air support to the forces of the Russian Pacific Fleet. This comes after a Pacific Fleet task force including a corvette and smaller anti-submarine ships held firing drills in the Sea of Japan on April 18th. The training sorties and drills are part of a snap review of the Russian forces in the Pacific ordered by President Vladimir Putin, which started on April 14th and is set to last until April 22nd. Ukraine receives first US Patriots, said to be a leading US defense system to combat enemy aircraft, ballistic missiles and cruise missiles. Ukrainian soldiers had received training from Germany and US troops. Rail workers across Germany will walk out on Friday as they demand higher wages to cope with high rates of inflation, the latest industrial action in Europe's largest economy. UK inflation shows an easing in the last month, but stays above the 10% mark. Britain's National Statistical Office says consumer price index rose by 10.1% in the 12 months to March 2023, as against 10.4% for the previous month. Chinese authorities have detained a dozen people over Tuesday's hospital fire in Beijing that left 29 people dead and numerous others injured. According to a preliminary probe, the fire broke out due to sparks which were generated during an ongoing internal renovation and caused flammable paint cans to catch on fire. Video footage showed some people climbing out of the windows using what appears to be makeshift ropes made out of bedsheets and jumping from the building. Holders Real Madrid reached the semi-finals of the Champions League for the third time in as many seasons following their 4-0 aggregate win over Chelsea. Meanwhile, AC Milan beat Napoli to reach the last four stage for the first time since 2007. Devin Booker dropped 38 points as the Phoenix Suns bounced back against the Los Angeles Clippers to level the 7-game series 1-1 with a 123-109 point triumph.
On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. We are leaving you with Gravitas images. Thanks very much for watching.
The SU Strela And I'm going to install...
Okay, copy.
Так, видишь страховку?
Do you see the safety setting?
С той стороны,
Oh, yes, it's on that side. Okay.
да? Держу платку.
I'm holding the bundle. Okay, now, yes.
Я подальше, думаешь, да?
You think should do it a little bit farther away, yes?
To the Rosviet module on the Earth-facing side of the station, where they will set up shop to begin work in unhooking.
WION, now available.
Gravitas tells you stories which others won't. And tonight we will tell you about this new strategic map that is being drawn.
They say your enemy's enemy is your friend. Is that the foundation of the new defense bridge between India and America?
This is what separates us from others